I didn't know. Oh, no, it's not right. Okay, just.
Almost goes two rounds.
Oh,
It's fine.
yeah.
So once you say that one, sounds good. Wait, did everyone read it?
Yeah.
Yes.
It will benefit all four of you to start a little bit slower and ramp up speed because my hands are really cold. So I just type a little slower until I get into it.
Feel free to call Kira after we have like some auditory things. So
I need to
just,
also.
they're just like around here, so it's just that one student.
Yeah, I can send it.
An extra sheet. Extra sheet, I should.
No. We will. I can talk for now. I'm sorry, you said something. Yeah, yes, if you do an extra sheet, I'll do that. Okay. I just had to add.
Are you sure? It's not there.
Maybe that you will.
Yeah, I'll put it here. I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Yeah, I'll keep it slow.
I know most of it probably right now, since you're still.
No, here we go.
It's also. What comes impressive?
Did all the judges get it? Just tell me.
Yeah.
Very cool. Are we good? Perfect. We affirm contention one is governance. African democracy declining needs governance models. BB 1212. Africa remains in a dangerously authoritarian spiral. Democracy deteriorated. Africa needed clarity in defining an African inspired framework for a legitimate government. And Somaliland is key, strong democratic government despite underdevelopment of mills at all. 31. Despite a tiny budget and hostile climate, Somaliland is showing the way for countries to follow. Somaliland country to achieving peace, not covered with regular elections. Somaliland remains not synonymous with poverty. The younger generation sees democracy diluting the clan system. Somaliland is moving democratic norms and regional democratic superpower. And recognition promotes democracy this kind. 12.1. Opposite recognition comes from authoritarian regimes views Somalia's democratic success as a president. The AU recognition single democracy value in Africa and opportunity to build a democratic region. And otherwise democratic decline in Africa spells global uncertainty for democracy. 24. With population to double, Africa holds global democracy's future. The youth are committed to movement chasing away authoritarian regimes to regain values. Democracy will have to reform, and democracy caps access to risk that's capped. 21. Voters are unlikely to tolerate a catastrophic risk. Democracy will improve governance and study of X risks. An average group of problem-solving agents that commit fewer mistakes, fail safe works. Even imperfect democracies prevent famines, make war less likely. The public has noticeable for news, but strong support for climate and conditions to use instability. Somaliland strategies for recognition is agreements like the MOU. That's Chapter 16 recognition strategy for Somaliland involves seeking patron states, no need to defining candidates. Somaliland turn relationship into recognition and certain agreements to commercial undertakings offer military base and imperial with Ferragamo. 24. Somaliland struck deals with foreign powers raising tensions, and Somaliland's new president will push for this chairman. 24. President gives special importance to pursue recognition for Somaliland and new government's first job, and new deals or the MOU pushes everything as well. 24. Africa was still relief for the MOU security landscape and tinderbox. A small mistake could cause rapid escalation. The MOU lives on Somaliland and Ethiopia strengthening relations, and Turkish mediation will fail as SMB 24. It is impossible to witness the outcome of the Ankara declaration. Ethiopia's leaders face strong opposition. Speculation indicate an impossibility between Somalia and Egypt. Ethiopia can take a step back after an unresolved early Egypt and Ethiopia's naval ambitions. Ops accused president of crossing sovereignty, signing a legal declaration. Ethiopia forces attacks Somalia forces violating the declaration. Peace requires diplomatic engagement and recognition solves politics spills over international force and diplomacy. That's Schwartz. 21. The AU has a mandate legitimacy to act authority, the AU in 2005 sending fact-finding mission to Somalia. The findings are favorable to Somalia, and the countries look to the regional body. Somalia will be allowed to join the UN. Somalia and Somalia have met 10 times to discuss Somalian status, sustain mediation, overcome delays. Somalia would be able to assist Somalia with security challenges. The AU has mandates to mediate peace and determine sovereignty of compel Somalia to negotiate, and infinitely amicable divorce is the most likely implementation of Chapter 16. Somalia pursued amicable divorce. Somalia required agreement on separation. Somalia and Somalia had held agreements. A patron instrumental in transforming discussions, recognition is realistic, evidenced by the amicable divorce between Eritrea and South Sudan, and the amicable divorce overcome AU option to separation. Otherwise, the act can't pass. Chapter 16. Somalia opposed recognition. The AU are unwilling to make the first move, hesitant to recognize over the objections. Somalia AU settlement would allow recognition without breaching the AU stance on territorial disruption. Absent recognition, Somalia's attempts to legitimize itself inflame the region. This 24. Somalians a recurring cause of instability and recognition crucial to stabilize regional politics, so deal would not have exacerbated tensions. But Somalia was recognized. Somalia has to appear as a legitimate state. National identity results around sovereignty. Striving for recognition will unrecognized jeopardize peace. The poor the oxalize securitize itself. Somalia make enemies. Somalia has to appear a state, but must do without engagement. And conflicts and never cause great power war. That's how many. 24. For Africa's on the cusp of war, catalyst of Abiy's accession with Ethiopia has to see MOU of clear violations of Somalia's sovereignty tensions have escalated the region in time of conflict drawing Red Sea states, all which consider Rwanda essential for security. US, China, Europe, and had military presence. Iran and Russia entered the fray region of battle from global powers by destroying maritime routes, war, and trade, countries to piracy. Somali piracy is resurgent to the Larco 24. Somali pirates are back. Piracy around the Horn of Africa is rising sharply. There has been more piracy than at any point. High ransoms, UNSC anti-piracy measures expired, and indeed, that's longer. 11-sided pirates, no sophisticated capacity. Houthi attacks push routes south, creating opportunities to exploit vulnerability. Security force stretched in, redeploying Red Sea and shoulder. 12-6 with the monsoon season. Any Somali piracies expected to rise for expenditure. Dramatic situation exacerbated by reduced security measures, and recognition enables Somaliland to attain anti-piracy reality. 24. Recognition would enable Somaliland to develop security infrastructure, participate in international frameworks, and strengthen intelligence gathering capabilities to territorial and subversive ways for unable operations, security, secure maritime trade, secure trade routes, clear card at routes, and indeed lengthen. 11. Somaliland is trying to fight with the ragtag coast guard. It has 500 miles of coast, but only 8 vessels, and otherwise piracy strategy is Gruza. 29% of colonies traveled by sea, Gulf, 8 in place. Prominent roles, Somali piracy threatening accountable damage to the world economy, higher interest, extra fuel, rerouting costs, endangered state trade at large, and the climate cause great power with Advance 21 slow booth makes leaders grab use to make nationalism across many, follows the path of U.S. economic circuit and Washington engaged in imperial expansion facing Conan, including invading 2 countries, France, undertaking military intervention, the fear of declining power motive for Earth's expansion. I just cut the rogue evidence at trade routes. Like it's one. Rogue 24, piracy, secure maritime. Yeah.
It's called R1. Please check the first.
I don't have the dot just yet.
We negate the 1AC for statement is an attempt to legitimize violence. The outclaims that we are leaving our imperial past and rejecting primacy. The abstract representation can do the enemy production to justify abstract and infinite violence. Part iniquity of 4. The fundamental pillars of the nation state's monopoly to legitimize violence of law and principle and legitimate use and accumulation of weapons to source of rights and intervention of legal action based on it with a movement to delegitimize the violence and imperial justice and the destruction of rights and sovereignty through the jurisdictional practices according to the violence established in law does not guarantee the legitimization, the reinforcement of the global order director actively legitimizing violence since the violence ceases to bring order defenses security legitimization be removed. The war constitutes the basis of politics and becomes the functional legitimacy legitimacy enemies not known yet, for present proper legitimization threatens are brought up larger than life figures that give the appearance of concrete war. The presence of demonstrates the need for security in the security of the abstract concerns for legitimate violence, freedom, conflict between the infinity of problems, ideology, what distributions, no matter violence preserves a hierarchy and violence that threatens the order of new imperial war. And the affirmative advocacy of political settlement removes Somaliland from their non-violent disputes and centralizes the use of violence as an operation of society. Philip 16. A political settlements aid or direction which empower interests and citizenship solidify around ideas about possession of politically possible the actions of violence and construction centrally. The political settlements are fundamentally about how society involves the government, the violence and use a minimum level of political stability and economic performance for its operating society. The words of balance and non-violent mechanisms result in significant duties and response settlements in place of managed power relationships. And the affirmative advocacy of state is the protection of violent political control of populations, use of subjectivity and oppression through the law. Degree 80. Within the category of criteria, the concept of a nation is founded not on something predefined but on the contrary, something that will and act and less determined by members of the population. This is what constitutes the nation itself. The nation becomes a homeland. State becomes an apparatus, and much of the force and law in which the homeland affirms or organizes itself, diverting itself to 11 devotion reserved for homeland and rights and value. The concept of the nation is always contradictory. The nation is also self as value, the opposing of distorted despotism and 11 that grants subjects and only if the latter is accompanied by alienation and subjugation. And the democracy is a contradiction. Apart in degree 04, the positive focus of the war ornamental and the points of democracy says that the concept of democracy is intended to define should the interests of anti-communist system and honors of the free will and the are little nature of government which is primarily opposition to capitalist control. Any state form will work against considerably capitalist domination claim to be democratic for and the crisis of democracy denied not only have to do with corruption and insufficiency of institutions but practices but also with the concept itself. And their depiction of piracy and terrorism, these are that conjunction of the other. Description tax pricing to violence state failure, using state structure to justify legitimate war. Frank Stengel 2019. From the beginning, piracy was argued to be deeply intertwined with the world and the United States failure and organized crime terrorism. Cyber lead the piracy to take the threat in the last remnants order, which proved that small independent and piracy structure inherently lead to new threats. Overall threat description category and new threats allowed to make sense of within the dominant security order. Vote for the negative to reject their imperial securitization and embrace the multitude. Our method is a part of the global movement to question the limits of power by exposing violence and contradictions. The multitude must emerge within education without compromise, either as vile political forces, co-op radicalism, which in the language of the empire. Shapiro 03. Discern the multitude of global revolutionary subject to self-modernization, set local struggles cooperated by strategy of the world. New universalism is grounded in the creative power of human activity and locus of production. It generates new subjectivities that systematize itself and mediated multitudes been captured by the sovereignty. The sovereignty practically coalesces but never managed to arrest. The conflicts are internalized, leaving no outside of the global system to invest the power of the multitude. Sovereignty is always trending towards a deeper threshold of difference. The critical approach is to bring light of contradictions. Necessity can open up alternative possibilities and reject the distinction between theory and practice. We have to think and act globally. The role of the ballot is to vote for the team who best deconstructs the imperial structure of educational spaces. Schools and debate have become a forefront of strategy to contain imagination and cement violence, which decks absolvency and turns education claims into the neg. Only through questioning representations of the notions can we shape the world. Win 14. The constructive feelings in war and security around education will legitimize the war identity. Think out the architecture, avenue, and advanced military strategy, the education of violence, and the geographic scripts operate knowledge of objective reality, but through particular geolocations invested in the war, resisting the ordering necessities, advocating normative frames of discourse, produce the space for resistance in which it's possible for the news to enter the world. We are continually negotiating. The power of offering images serves as one of resisting the status quo, and school serves as the central site because security relies on the affirmation starting understands the world. The negative thesis is very, very clear. Because Somaliland is not recognized as a state, they are able to they don't have legitimized violence. Instead, can resort to other forms of non-violent like dispute resolution. Instead, the affirmative forces them to use it, laws and force to legitimize violence in the first place.
Alright. Here's for cause.
Yeah.
Since I spoke first, I have the first question. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the democracy. Why is democracy illegal?
We would say it's a contradiction to what democracy claims. So democracy is meant to be this freestanding body in which we include all the people, but instead what it does, it contradicts itself because it's allowing us to legitimize use of force and resistance and violence within
So
the
what's
state.
the alternative to democracy?
The alt is to embrace difference.
No, like
the alt is not to have statehood in the first place. Our alt is a form of self-governance in which we embrace the difference of different forms of government, which is why we describe it
your
as
argument is that statehood enables
sure, we can go to
nation
art
states
and the
to
use,
use
right?
Your argument is that statehood allows nation states to use laws to legitimize violence, correct?
Yes, it puts limits on the legitimate.
Does Somaliland have laws right now?
We would say that it's not allowed to because of the international order, specifically on the international scale,
Somaliland,
which we are able to legitimize violence because as part of the creed it describes, it's against state v state, which is why you need legitimization
Somaliland
through
just
the act.
does not have any laws to legitimize stuff.
That's not the point. The point is because it's not legitimized, it doesn't resort to violence. It resorts to like
Wait, so
peaceful resolution.
what makes nation states like unique to like non-sovereign states?
Cooperation within the international order.
So Somaliland does not cooperate with the international order.
It is not recognized, it does not cooperate on the international order, which is what Hart and the Creed critiques as its form of legitimizing violence within that
Okay,
sphere.
that's fine. We have a question.
Sure, let's talk about instability. Why is democracy key to solving for instability?
The argument is that because voters elect candidates who are less likely to go to war. Voters obviously do not want war, so they're less likely to elect hardline candidates. That's outlined in the camp evidence. Secondly, we would argue that democracy allows for collective action to cooperate over things such as war. Empirically, conflicts were driven by authoritarian regimes.
Can you name me a conflict?
World War II,
Sure. Was driven by what kind of governments?
authoritarian Germany.
Okay, sure,
Can I have a question?
sure.
Very cool. Again, let's talk about the Canadian, right?
Mhm.
So your argument is that, so what makes like nation states again unique to like Somaliland, who already has multiple trade ties with other countries and is already
It is
relatively
not
integrated.
recognized as a state.
Yeah,
We are
but it's
not
still
ready-
integrated with like the international
We have
community.
made the claim that you guys are making threat constructions as a state post-recognition, which is why our evidence isn't just about democracy, right? It's also about the biopolitical effort that we make through piracy, that we make
Okay,
through
so
terrorism.
why is
that we-
piracy a threat construction? Like,
We can look through the card, you want me to read it to you?
yeah, read a line that
Okay.
says piracy, like.
Piracy was argued to be deeply intertwined as relevant with new threats, including state failure, organized crime, and even terrorism. It linked piracy to state failure as failure, as it threatened the last remnants of order,
So
which
like,
the
so
people
like
of
the
Somalia.
Houthis are just not real.
What? That is not what we're saying. We're saying the
But
threat
that's your
construction under
argument, right?
international states is what we use to legitimize violence in this like
Your argument is
status
that
quo.
securitizing pirates as a threat when in reality.
No, it's inherently against threat construction in our overall biopolitical threat
Okay,
construction.
that's fine.
Wait, no,
Oh, you went over it.
Oh, I might have not.
Alright,
I only have one. That's all right.
you can just reset it.
Were you on some sort of brain?
Where are we? But yeah, it'll start on like a framework argument and then it'll go down first. We know that everyone goes.
I'm just not.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, it's not on.
Sorry.
Okay, yeah.
Role of the ballot is to vote for the debater that best prevents existential scenarios where letting reason by extinction is the most important human impact. Their role of the ballot is overly restricting and only self-serving. Their argument only focuses on a specific corner of academia, but our argument is about encompassing human life, which is the determinants of every single academic consequence. Secondly, for a consequence, the affirmative against competitive alternative, they have to prove that their links are unique and the alternative necessarily competes with the affirmative permutation to vote to. Permutation to life can resolve the status quo, can definitely resolve the links. The affirmative does not proclaim to resolve the state in every single instance. Our argument is about the state in one specific instance, the result that prevents existential risk. They have proved the alternative resolves every single instantiation of the state. Agreed. Permutation to the affirmative through the process of the alternative. The alternative is a form of global movements for their evidence, but you can do that through the affirmative. Our argument is that the affirmative is an example of a global movement. It's an example of a movement that exists for 3 decades. An argument that the affirmative increases literacy and engaging in is education valuable. Now, extinction first is prior to reflection costs, non-consensual left 7 billion in future generations outweighs on scope, and time foreclosed ethical deliberation, extreme via incineration, radiation, 1 debate against nuclear risk, breeds after the abandonment, reface, detached, elitism that's offered 17 the nuclear challenge to live with. We have chosen the question is whether we have the capacity to end this logic, responding to the imperative sense of care for capacity to non-violently decoding those versions until why through conceptualize human community to see how we can learn to survive. 2. Death is ontologically and morally bad. It comes before and linked terms 1 and C. That's Patterson 3. Death can be thought as a primitive evil for all persons, regardless of the extent to which they are participating in goods and intentional rejection of human life and expression of these ultimately is value for the subject. Right ontological good. We cannot be linked to wait against the travails of life to deal with suffering. We should not destroy this person. Now I'm going to line the links here for they say political settlement. We read a litany of links arguments that are first in our case that indicate that settlement and statehood is inevitable. Our arguments is Somaliland is striving for that now. The affirmative is the best way to implement statehood, even though it's inevitable, because it's from the African Union, which is a coalesced example of recognition, which is far more democratic and far more equitable. Their second thing about democracy is nonsense. They have not explained what the alternative is, and their arguments in the context of democratic capitalism in the U.S., which is obviously far distinct from Somaliland, which is nascent for burgeoning democracy, which is entirely distinct. 3, on threat colonial threat construction. I'll answer all of their arguments later, but even then, our evidence indicates that those are threats. If these are a real threat, they're causing a civil war that have already killed thousands of people in Yemen, and neglecting that threat is academically dishonest. Now, on threat construction 1, winning the app proves that we're not in threat construction 2. There's always some possibility that existential threats are real, which means it's impossible to arbitrarily assign threats high risk, allowing the judge to choose what's good, and threat construction is good. Psychological bias runs towards threat deflation. That's Schweller 04. States with some regulatory underestimate dangers to the world. The field of security studies are heavily biased against the warnings of dangers on reacting. Run states fall to adjust and improve in a coherent way and challenge dangerous states and strategic environment. States are willing and unable to balance against dangerous threats and unable to mobilize resources. And military policy produces violence. Deliberating about it is good. That's Brian 12. You need answers to the question military logistical things to impose. The state relies on supply chains, but supply lines, communications networks, and people. And biopower is not a one-way street. Produces equivalent resistances that check the impacts. That's Campbell at 98. Because the government practice the biopolitics has been directed towards modes of being individuals and are articulated for a series of counter demands drawn from the new fields of concern. The claim for consequence of permanent propagation of power, freedom, biopolitics can stand a strategic reversibility of power. State intervention is long and steady collective action, the result of which has been risks new claims upon the state, and prolonged engagement with the state is key. Keeping institutional changes channels opens up gradual mobilization, prevents the state from rolling back gains. That's Schwartz and Schulman 12. Root, the strategy of clandestine organization, lends to traffickers to democratic capitalism is dismal because parties are usually authoritarian and any possible transition from necessary mobilization, democratic legitimacy, the majority support, only a strong majority movement for solid armed coup. There's yet to be a communist revolution, which the vanguard party allows itself to be voted out of office. And finally, the affirmative is a massive link to this argument. Our argument is that the affirmative dismantles the empire, breaks down barriers that have caused colonialization. For example, Somaliland is an example of a colony that has its borders entrenched as a result of British and Italian conflicts in the past. So our argument is of recognizing sovereignty and granting independence is a move towards decolonization, which is the best way towards materially addressing the empire in the first place. So we address the root cause in that way.
Okay, you read everything, right?
Was there any other part?
There were quite a few parts of the copy.
Can I get those?
Yeah.
West.
Yeah.
What did you mean by the
The
biopolitics?
distance that checks the impacts.
Biopolitics is a geometry. It's not just perpetually random,
And it is perpetually limited.
but like individual people, like,
Which part is that?
you have a candle many years.
That's 207 left, I'll send it down.
No, it's sorry. Or,
So it's not like,
107.
oh,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I took
not
that.
here.
I'm gonna send it down. A lot of this is gonna be off.
What are the types of roles? Okay.
Cool.
Thank you for that.
So we're just gonna go framing, okay, and all line domains, and then their case. Yeah. I'm gonna start on my first word. Is anyone, and framing's gonna go R framing and then their framing. Is anyone not ready? Start on the next framing. They just assert for you that the alt is self-serving with no reason why. Don't buy this. And they tell you that you should be able to compare the app versus competitive alt. They've conceded first. All of our pre-fiat offense and talking about the issue of the empire and imperial structures in debate is key. Because debate is the space where these structures exist, and debate itself is an imperial structure. That's pre-fiat offense first. It's been 50, but they've all conceded that the alt comes before the app, and since all sort of apply to the perm to both here. Our K comes first because our education is crucial policy to reduce the feedback loop to algorithm regulation, which kills app solvency. It turns education plans only by reclaiming radical imagination through democratic debate, and we form new futures challenged by political inertia. We're 15. Education is built to algorithm regulation, everything is the desire of how much education can imagination, culture, and here signal fashion, imagination, for whether don't be led by the imagination, to be part of a politics, and politics, recognition of the our value of trying to get to the definition of the knowledge. People don't think other words in order to debate and politics ideas without institutional infrastructure debate and it's acted cut the card there. They particularly tell you have to do both. No, you have to do the alt and then do the app because they consider that you have to interrogate imperial structures and why we're actually forming the empire before we do anything. Otherwise, we reproduce the dynamics that they're trying to get away from. And then they tell you that there's no way that the alt can solve because we're only interrogating one state. But again, we'll cross by the pre-fiat offense here that we're telling you that we're interrogating imperial structures in the debate states, which uniquely means to solve for all states, but also theory and practice are inseparable. Delusion to go 71. I want to reference the obligation to the relations of the distinct theory practice for partial and background practices to the relation of theory when other theories relate one practice other theories and national knowledge every representation of existence like action fixtures as realization theory knowledge first considered collaborative is practical local and not totalizing. Then they also tell you that the state is inevitable. No, the state is not inevitable. Here it's proved. At least no 6. Numerous such considerations are so that history and some reason comes over 1 million individuals over the world should operate international intermediate zones as my government institutions interactions between the inhabitants of these different nations. But then go to their framing. On the extinction first, they tell you it's a prior ontological question. No. They've conceded that the reason we even see risks of extinction is because of imperial power structures. We would also tell you that the impact of liberal biotech and secularization of populations is war and extinction, so we link it either way. Dylan 15. Modern politics, organization, war, existential formation of liberal government, liberal distance, nature, other countries involved in fortune, and nature species in the biological unique life and preserves like much threats, seeking and nothing guys with the lobes of pieces, never politics, permanent war, anti promotion, sections, to be guarded races, some of the features which are more eligible, which are not needed, which are nation, backward, and accident, never political, arbitrary, which are certified in the liberal way of war. Then they also tell you that they breed empathy, but they don't ever actually talk about individuals and what people experience when extinction happens, or the emotional horror for that. There's no empathy because they literally view it through interaction between states. That's the whole issue that we're critiquing. But then they tell you death is ontologically and morally bad. We're not disagreeing with that, but we would argue that ours comes first because the way that we even get to death in the first place is by legitimizing state violence. There's no reason we ever would see nuclear war happen unless we delegitimize state violence. But then on the links to decay, on threat concession, they tell you that there's when the Africans are not constructed that. No, the threat is still completely constructible. Read defense on their contentions there, but then also they tell you there's always some possibility that existential threats are real. And the only reason existential threats are even have a risk of being real in the first place is because of imperial power structures and the empire. And the only way that we can actually prevent them is we deconstruct the empire. Otherwise, extinction is inevitable. It always happens at some point to try or die for the all to actually stop the empire. Then they tell you it's good to focus on existential threats and that we, because threat construction is deflated. No, it's not. Literally, their own evidence indicates that policymakers are clearly thinking about these threats and actually constructing them so that they can justify violence being done by their empire. Then they say that we shouldn't grant value. That's not all the logic. We're never saying we shouldn't cover extinction. We're still linking into extinction. Then they say prolonged engagement with the state is key. No, we tell you that we've been having prolonged engagement, it's not where we sustain itself as well. That's the democracy link that we read you. Then, on the deliberation and resistance, no, we tell you the resistance is happening and all it's doing is harming people because it's not succeeding. But then go to the case. On democracy, one, let's iterate that African democracy is backsliding divided models. There are democratic nations in Africa right now, but they're still having the lack of success after because we told you democracy is a contradiction because states can be democratic, but it's only defined opposition to communism, not naturally protecting people. But also that state recognition legitimizes the violence because right now Somaliland is to check back against its people because it's not being used as a state, rather it's a collection of people. When you affirm it, many Somaliland government, other people look to its violence as being acceptable. But then on instability, when we tell you that amicable divorce is not like the invitation greater than four, amicable divorce, comments, strong domestic competition, and dialogue, both sides, and have mutually exclusive professionals have the card there, and then go to piracy when it's not even used Somaliland return isn't likely, there's never materialized. Go to 23, two next level of Somali for research and decision of the 2017, 18, 19, 20, between number of harassment, small piracy is likely. This is because literally these same threats have been constructed in the past. They try to paint it as a real threat for you, but it's not real that it's being constructed by the government. Also not talk. Everything on C1 was analytics.
We're gonna say.
Just how you guys proceed.
Yeah, let's start preference. I've got it, but it is not.
Please affect that.
Yeah. Alright, we're gonna start. That was 145. Okay, are you good for a crossfire?
Yeah.
Cool. Can I take the first question, please?
Yeah.
Where in 1C did you read an argument that says that debate is an imperial structure?
Where in the 1C? It's UN 14.
Could you read the whole please?
Sure, constructive feelings of fear and security around education. To unravel the imagined bureaucracies that facilitate this absorption of education into imperial strategy. strategy of war.
So where does the win evidence talk about debate?
Schools serve as essential sites, very relies on the affirmation of understandings of the world. We make the analysis that debate is an extension of the educational space. Can I take a question?
Is the only exception to the educational space?
We would say it's one of the major, it's the space that we're operating within, and we don't present an
Okay,
alternative
cool.
into how we would interrogate this in other educational spaces, but two, we also do the analysis that debate is key, because that's when we're having discussions about this, like, in terms of real world applications and policy making. Can I take a question?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, let's talk about, like, democracy. Are there existing democracies in Africa?
Somaliland as well.
Okay, but are there, like, recognized democracies?
Yeah, there are.
So then why is African democracy still?
Those democracies were
exist?
recognized like way back, like the last one was like the 60s, I forgot.
Wait, so then if they've had that, if you're a democracy that's recognized, didn't you have time to develop them? Why would they still be backsliding?
Our argument is that, well, number one, Somaliland is one of the biggest democracies, and number two, Somaliland is relatively modern in the fact that like countries are still looking towards Somaliland because uniquely in the Horn of Africa, which is the precarious area of Africa, given that we're
Wait, all the countries in Africa are looking towards
like
Somaliland.
a lot of them, certainly.
Can you
Especially
name
ones
one?
that are
Like,
like
what's one country that said that we follow Somaliland?
like the DROC, for example. Our argument is that countries will follow Somaliland, and it's that like exerting pressure on those countries will naturally occur as a result of people having examples to point to post a country. Can I have a question?
Sure.
What does it mean for something to be pre-fiat?
What does it mean for something to be pre-fiat? It's often that happens right now. So when you make it endorses foreign message about talking about real structures of debate, like before
But
the African American
Like-
structures.
like you're talking about debate, why does that mean that you should immediately come first?
Oh, okay, gotcha. So basically what we're arguing is that because we actually interrogate the imperial structures in debate, and we can see that school and educational spaces are uniquely critical to dismantling this in the real world, we come first so you can endorse our methodology under the role of about to best deconstruct imperial structures, because not only do we deconstruct and we post-fiat world, like what happens when we recognize Somaliland and why we shouldn't, but we also deconstruct it in this group right now when I guess there's only one spectator, but they're still internalizing
So
the imperial structures.
what message does the ballot send if the judge votes for you?
It sends that imperial structures are bad and that we should interrogate them in this methodology.
So why is this unique to every other negative ground where like debaters read a critical negative that's like, you know, state
What
is
do you
bad,
mean?
US is genocidal, etc.
What do you mean?
Like your proceeding is not unique, like.
Oh, it's Ivy Street, and so people watch these one which means it's a reference for people that can't.
Is
track
this
and
the only
think that
round
it's
where critical negative is
interrogate
right being watched?
It's the only round, no, we would argue that it's unique because it's being spread online rather than just through in-person spectators, but that's cause.
Very cool. We're gonna keep taking questions. Starting now. Okay, that was 55.
So how much left?
Actually, we'll take a little bit more.
Oh, okay.
Alright, sorry, last one. We have 10 seconds.
Order is gonna be our case, framing the K. Everyone good? On democracy, I'll hand stuff on the K, but they have dropped there's no alternative democracy. They dropped things because authoritarians are comparatively worse because they spread authoritarian sentiment and cause massive instability on instability. This is the argument that we're going for. Somaliland's pursuit of recognition, force new deals, and inflaming tension cause instability as a dangerous regional neighbors' interest. Recognition enables the AU to exercise legitimacy and mediate and amicable divorce between Somalia and Somalia, enforcing mutual negotiations and reducing tensions or else tensions, inevitably drawing great powers when they attempt to secure resources. State for task because nuclear causing extinction through nuclear famine. The only response they have is this: amicable divorce is not the most likely invitation, but they have conceded the Jacob's evidence indicates empirically Eritrea, South Sudan, etc., all of which undergo amicable divorce. It's the most probable implementation and it allows for most mutual negotiation between powers. Their evidence is not specific to Somaliland, while our evidence it takes into account empirics of multiple instances of secession, and their evidence was cut way too early for you to grant any warrant. Like the argument is just conceded, and it's conceded empirics on amicable secession. The framing debate. Extend the role of ballot. You should prioritize the team that prioritize existential risk. Anything else is self-serving. The argument that I'll be going for is the fact that discussing nuclear retaliation breeds preemption, and they've dropped the deaths inherently ontologically bad and foreclosed the future of all progress and affects 7 billion people. And it's the only irreversible impact. Their only response is previous office. But they dropped that even if there is an educational space discussing these existential risks and debating about new colonialism is inherently a good thing, which is what we're endorsing. At the very worst, previous office is a watch. You should defer to roll the ballot. Also, they did not extend roll the ballot last speech, which probably means you default to us. But secondly, they say that they link into extinction, but they've dropped that. It doesn't matter if on the case specifically. One, the first argument that I'll go for is the fact that Somaliland settlement and state negotiation is inevitable. They say it's not inevitable, but their evidence is not specific to Somaliland. We've read once, that's why Somaliland is in the negotiation things is poor deals because they inherently want their sovereignty. While their evidence is about states in general, our evidence is about Somaliland in general. Indicates that Somaliland is never going to pursue states, which at the very worst, their case is not even dropped. The link turned cold in the last piece that indicates that recognition of Somaliland enables decolonial structures because we're endorsing a form of AU recognition, which is comparatively worse than decolonial, which is a drop link turned to their case, which means the affirmative solves, and we link it to their case. Second argument that I'll go for is the fact is the perm double bind. They say that the perm double bind, the fact that if their alternative is strong enough to resolve every single state instantiation, then they should be able to resolve our links as well. But our argument is that we're only doing an instance of one state, which should not be enough to trigger the links, which means they just drop the perm double bind. It doesn't matter if they're criticizing the state. The fact is there's bigger states that carry out bigger mass genocide. If their alt is strong enough, and if their alt is able to solve all the problems that they talk about, then they should be able to overcome our link as well, which is conceded perm double bind. The final argument I'll go for is the Bryan evidence that indicates that they find anything else here? Oh, okay. The final argument I'll go for is the Campbell evidence that indicates that biopower is inherently a biopower is a two-way street. They dropped that states aren't always exerting pressure as well. It also prompts civilians to resist as well, because they also want to resist the state, which means that at the very worst, their argument is not unique, and there's no effective biopower.
Cool. We have like 54 seconds. Can we take questions?
Yeah, sure.
What does this K9 mean?
You read a link that says that the affirmative's advocacy for statehood links into the critique. Our argument is that advocacy for statehood exists regardless of the affirmative.
Cool.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Another question, what did you concede on democracy at the top?
We can see what was answering the problem.
Yeah, cool. The order is gonna go framing. Okay. Wait, framing, extension. Framing, okay. Yeah. There's gonna be something popped up on framing. You just maybe make a little, you're on spreadsheet, just make a little new box. On the roll of the ballot, Monica did extend it. I'll extend it later. But then, on their extinction framing, one, they don't extend an extinction impact. At the very least, you're still voting for the negative try or die that Monica extends in her rebuttal. But then second, you're also voting on the fact that all of their claims about extinction first literally links into our case. It literally says first, discuss nuclear retaliation is bad. Yes, it only lies when you actually do it. Legitimize structures that allow us to talk about nuclear war in the first place, which is why Monica explains it's a direct turn to the extinction in the first place. But then second, they say apology is bad. Yes, that's why you need to do the negation to reject these ontological claims that exist when you have structures like the state that legitimize violence in the first place. place. But then they said you should drop free fiat. No, we clearly explained that the Ivy Round Street Robin, or like the round robin, is linked on and shared to everyone on the internet. And Jeff literally says it's going to be sent to everyone in the nation after us. You should think about the structures that it exists in debate and in the world before we can actually critique them. That's why you automatically have to do the neg first. Like you said, the K. The one I see for the state is time to legitimize violence. Thou claims we're leaving our imperial past and reject privacy, the abstract representation, think of enemy protection, to justify abstract and infinite violence. I will go for the statehood and democracy link. The state has the protection of biopolitical control on the population, used to create subjectivity and oppression through the wall. That's why democracy is a contradiction. The construction of the opposition to communism and justify violence in the name of the greater good. The United States is a democracy, and they conceded that states like Somaliland look to the United States for democracy as part of the international world order. That's why the United States is not called out when the Europe, the US, the West, because they're framed as democracies. And then the vote for the negation to reject the imperial securitization, embrace the multitude. Our methods is part of the global movement, question the limits of power by exposing these violent contradictions. The multitude must emerge within education without compromise. Otherwise, violent political forces co-operativism, which is the language of the empire. First, group all of the claims Audica has made about the debate space being key. They have cold conceded it. Debate space is key because we have to talk about the structures before we can make arguments on it. That's why you automatically need to vote neg, especially in the Ivy Street Round. But then second, go to their
Go to the lantern, we respond.
Oh, go to the lantern first. They conceded that the retaliation that groups make under biopolitical structures never works because biopolitical structures legitimize the violence that they can use against their own people. That's why they've conceded that democracies have lasted for decades in Africa, which is why biopolitics still exists there because it's under the legitimate world order of the West. That's why you automatically vote here.
On the expansion of statehood, they consider the theories, practices,
Oh yeah, on expressions, they conceded theories practice means that you automatically have to think about the theory first and the reasons why we have biopolitics in the first place, which automatically means you have to do the neg first. But then
allowing Somaliland to exist as an independent state is the only way to embrace the multitude.
allowing Somaliland to exist as the only way we embrace multitude, which means it's the only way we are able to enact imagine other forms beyond communism and democracy. Their limitation on that is the only reason why we constrain ourselves to those spaces in the first place. But then I go to their case. First, they don't even extend an impact, but that's like they conceded that our evidence is about Somaliland and says that amicable divorce is not possible because national legitimacy interests that are probably tied to biopolitics in the first place and forms of democracy that they enact in the first place. That's why you automatically vote for the neg. But then on the framework, extinction inevitable unless you do the all. They talk about this perm double bind. No, you cannot do the neg if you do the app because you are legitimizing these imperial infrastructures, which is why you automatically have to do the neg first and then the app. If the neg is able to overcome these assumptions, that means we never have to do the app in the first place.
Alright, here for great thoughts.
Can we agree that extinction happens?
No.
No.
Wait, what?
Well, okay, we would say that first.
We said that we said first that the thing about our cases of free rec and the impact on biopolitics because it creates endless feedback loops that we have explained spurs this discussion of nuclear war extinction.
Yeah, what is the terminal impact called?
Okay, well, we would say first, it's not like your framework of just looking at the extinction on the impact level first. We're not agreeing with that. We're saying you have to look sequentially to why extinction is even happening. Can I finish? We're talking about imperial structures, right? Like the only reason you even have a risk of extinction is because you're legitimizing violence by nation states. But then we would also say we link into extinction anyways. If you want to make the argument that we're both comparing extinction.
That wasn't my question. My question is what is the terminal impact of the critique?
The terminal impact of the critique is extinction due to race.
Okay, so both sides have impacts that are about extinction.
Well, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't extend it. It's not.
Well, okay, whatever. We would say, even if both sides have impacts about extinction, we would argue that sequentially analyzing why that extinction even comes to be comes first, otherwise it's inevitable, which is why it's higher die for the all political take your question.
Okay, let's talk about instability.
Yeah.
How long will it take for Turkey to fail mediation discussions?
What?
It says your case relies on the fact that Turkish mediations will fail, which is why you
Yes,
need to do
the
the
argument is that Turkish mediation is failing, which is why tensions are not.
So how long does it take to spur that conflict?
Like 10 years, obviously.
10 years?
Obviously, I can't
Perfect.
tell you. I'm
Wait, 10 years. You can take it.
I'm a little confused why you're asking a question about time frame.
Well, Monica can explain it in her speech, but you can take it.
Wait, new weighing and second findings.
Sure, sure.
Okay, let's talk about, or I guess let's talk about the framework arguments here. So you read a card by Duluth that says that theory and practice comes first.
And Giro, 15.
Yeah, DNG, yeah. What is theory and practice?
Theory and practice is the idea that when we talk about and actually analyze the structures that we are in, we are able to expand them into policy making, which is why it explains why education is uniquely key, because we as educational learners and people in academics will influence the way policymakers to make decisions, as we are advisors, or as the way we change the way people in the actual community think about it, because we are having discussions on it. That's why D&G explains that discussion is really key, because it takes things like Socratic seminar, Socratic discussion to be able to enact new ideas into the world order.
Okay, that's fine. Do you have a question?
Cool. Let's talk about instability again.
Yeah.
What is amicable divorce?
It's when the two parties come to a mutual agreement on the terms of secession. Here we've seen Eritrea and South Sudan.
Okay, is there a difference between Somaliland and South Sudan?
We would argue that they face similar conditions. Our argument is that the AU has legitimacy and the ability to mandate sovereignty, which is why I think that in times of secession and negotiate mediation between the two parties. Can I have another question?
I have those.
Alright, we have 10 seconds.
Sure.
Let's take that. Okay. Order will be our case and then the K. Everyone ready? Okay, sorry.
It is strive or die for the affirmative without negating will ultimately cause an accidental impact. The affirmative was read scenario that indicates that only negotiations via referendum and amicable divorce via the African Union can solve. They dropped that recognition of Somaliland means that some Somalians attempts that recognition will stop, and it so goes to the form of an amicable divorce. As a result of that, it forces negotiation that prevents great power drawing, and they drop that African war escalates through for escalation, great power conflicts, and that escalates to both sides agree that nuclear war causes extinction because of nuclear famine. They say that we don't have an accidental impact. Felix literally read an extension off the doc that includes the word extinction multiple times, and it says that nuclear famine causes extinction. Also, they haven't read impact defense. They say that some response about biopolitics and how amicable divorce isn't likely. They drop the Jackets evidence that's a decade more recent, and our evidence says that historical precedent for Eritrea means that the amicable divorce is more likely, and our evidence is also marked way too early now. You know there's 100% of the chance of the affirmative prevents extinction. Both sides agree that extinction is the terminal impact of this debate. The only reason why their theory and practice is valuable speaks of extinction, but the affirmative is the most material and approximate way of resolving now. Now the K, they have dropped way too much for you to feel comfortable voting for this. One, extend permutation double bind. The alternative can resolve the status quo. Every single statement can definitely resolve every instantiation of the link. They drop that yes, they might address Somaliland, but they don't address the US, China, etc. Every single other state that is equally, if not more, genocidal. Our argument is that they cannot address these things, entirely drop, which means that even if they win all their framing cards from D&G about theory and practice, our argument is not that you should reject the negative, just that you can do it with the affirmative, which is precisely the negative burden we're trying to extend the argument that Somaliland statehood is inevitable. They drop that statehood is inevitable, which means that all of their links and impacts are inevitable. Only our argument solves these through African Union. They say that our argument through Western biopolitics. The African Union is not in the West. What? And their arguments about discourse are irrelevant. Just because everyone sees us round, we will concede that debate is an educational space, but our argument is the affirmative is educational valuable because it encourages model debate where people discuss things like decolonization and how to best grant statehood. 3, extend that decolonization is the affirmative. The affirmative addresses the most material impacts of the state, which addresses biopolitics. Their response to also roll the ballot is prevent extinction. Both sides agree. They only have criminal act or extinction, so roll the ballot. Hail Marys don't matter.
We don't have the order is gonna go framing, the K, and then their case. Or yeah, extension, and then I'll do framing, their case. Anyone not ready? Cool. The 1AC for statehood is an attempt to legitimate violence. Outcomes here leaving their imperial past and rejecting primacy, the abstract implementation include enemy protection to justify abstract and infinite violence, the abstract gives you statehood and protection of a violent control of the population used to create subjectivity and oppression, people lobby, generate expectation, and terror and civility. When we do one against each other violently, the direction of terrorism, high secret section, the other description, high privacy amounts, state values, and state to justify legitimate war. Both negative reject their imperial securitization, embrace the multitude of methods, part of the global limit of question limits of power by exposing its violence contradiction to the multitude, must work within education without compromise, otherwise violent forces, co-product with living legislature. All due to the framework comparison here. They should extend extinction first. There's no warranty here. Remember, you hired imperial structure for the whole reason there's either risk of extinction in the first place. The only risk of being conceptual extinction is to be justified states and allowed their violence to happen. That's the only reason we have a risk of extinction that's been conceded the entire round. Which means even if you look to the extinction impacts sequentially, our role of the ballot comes first because that's the root cause of extinction. They try to do new try or die. We know, go for our try or die. We've just been here conceded the entire round. That's try or die for the net because even if extinction happens in the advent, it's completely inevitable unless we actually interrogate the imperial imperial structures behind. They just push extinction to a later date. The only way you can actually remove the risk of extinction is through the negative by interrogating imperial structures. But all line by line the critique here. First, they tell you that we can do that for the perm double line resolve every state. No, but they've conceded theory and practice, which tell you that we talk about Somaliland, address Somaliland, and have this theory and discussions that allow Somaliland to exist in an independent state that spreads globally. There's no more to survive. What?
You can't do both.
And also then they say they can do the negative after. No, remember sequentially, the neg must come before the affirmative, because otherwise you reproduce the imperial structures of the affirmative interrogating. When the negative comes first, and they say we drop that statehood in the middle. No, we tell you that statehood is bad because it legitimizes Somaliland's violence. Because if you have statehood, it means that the violence of Somaliland is okay. Then they tell you that Western Bible is A and you're responsible. We would also tell you that state recognition is a Western concept. We're not saying the AU is Western, we're saying the idea of recognition is. Then on the pre-field offense, they tell you that the app is educationally valuable because no, because they're discussing decolonization. We would say that no, we outweigh because we think like imperial structures uniquely can debate also that they're not discussing decolonization insofar as they've conceded that they are imperialists when they put so much priority on state recognition, which is a Western world order construct. But then go to their case. Remember, the amicable divorce thing, it's not about the fact that our evidence is old. They conceded the warranty that Kane gives you, that I give you, which is that it's because Somalia really wants to keep Somaliland as part of itself. They can fiat the after, they can't fiat that it becomes popular. That means amicable divorce is impossible. It's clean for the neck.
Alright, you're right.
Good job, guys. Thank you for judging.
I can give a couple of quick pieces of feedback.
Yeah,
for each
that'd be
side
great.
if you would want. I'll put them on my ballot too if I remember. But I feel like in general, the framing debate has to be like much more comparative from both sides.
Yes.
Right, like you need to be interacting with the justifications that are given for framing. And you need to be telling me like why your justifications for your framing outweigh the justifications that the other side is giving me. I also think that the extension of the K can be a little bit slower, just so that I'm like actually getting the full story, you know? But I don't think that that was like a major issue. For the F, I think that a couple of the arguments you make on threat construction could almost be indicts to the method if you wanted to break them up, so it's like less meaty on threat construction, but then you have more ink in two different parts of the flow. I think that when you go for threat construction and don't answer the method, it almost leaves the method open as like sort of easy offense, even though like the perm double bind and a lot of the framing responses interact with that.